because of the knowledge I got in recovery up to that point, whether I was sincere about being in recovery or not, it stuck. This time I would get high and I couldn't look at myself in the mirror, you know? I couldn't talk to my mom on the phone. So basically I'm living in a home by myself, completely isolated from everyone, sick, you know, and just full of shame and guilt.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Recovery Happens. I'm Patrick Patterson with BW Rock. Today we have Rick, who's here to offer hope and encourage recovery.
I spent a lot of my childhood like chasing my father's attention and affection. Now I realize that, he may have just not been equipped with the tools to be a present father because of his upbringing. However, I used that as an excuse to act out and to use drugs. It started to become the solution of my problems at home and in my personal life. I feel like we moved around a little bit when I was younger, so by the time I got to middle school and we were kind of set in where I was going to be until I graduated high school, I never felt accepted by any of the other kids. So by the time I got to high school, I started hanging out with older kids who could buy cigarettes and get booze. And for me, some of those kids went on to be able to just let that be that part of their life, and that was fine. But for me, I continued to want more and more. Eventually, years down the road, I discovered that I'm an addict, and that was really the only outcome for me. On my dad's side of the family, it's a huge family. Alcohol was kind of normalized for me at an early age. Every year at the Knights of Columbus down at 8 Mile and Ryan, we'd have a huge Christmas party for the family. The family would bartend the event, and everyone would just get plastered. So from a very early age, I'm seeing all these adults do these things, and I'm thinking this is what adulthood is. This is what I want to do when I grow up. Once I can drink alcohol and do whatever I want, then I'm an adult. The way I discovered I was an addict, first of all, I was in denial for most of my addiction. The majority of my addiction, I was in denial. I thought that when I wanted to stop, I could stop, and that just wasn't the case over and over and over. I would go through periods where I would get a job, get some money in my pocket, relapse, lose the job, detox at home. I ended up moving back in with my mom and my dad at 21. So I had gotten 2 DUIs before I was even 21 years old, lost my license. And from that point, I decided to start experimenting with painkillers. And I figured, if I was on painkillers or pills, I couldn't breathalyze if I got pulled over, just kind of trying to shoot a move. And then that spiraled out of control as well. So I had moved out of Michigan for a little bit, and I joined a band, and I was touring, and things were going really good. Then I eventually relapsed, and I got some of the other members of the band to start doing drugs with me, and the band fell apart, and I had to come back home. So this is probably at 21 years old, 22 years old. At some point, someone introduced me to Adderall, which I then realized was my new favorite drug of choice. Went to a doctor, told them that I was prescribed it in another state. They believed me, and I was off to the races with that. So at some point, I was trying to make myself believe that because I was getting a medication from a physician, right, there was nothing wrong with it. Doctor says I can take it, I'm going to take it. Well, that was until I started abusing it. And eventually I started forging my doctor's signature and prescriptions and obtaining the prescription illegally. So when I would get a prescription once a month, that turned into 3 times a month. And I was doing that for about 9 months until I got caught. And once that happened, now this is over the span of 8 years from the time that I get home from Illinois to the time that I get my first felony. And it's crazy because I had never been to Port Huron in my entire life. Maybe once passing through, but that's it. I had met somebody who had been out here, come through the recovery community, had success, kind of went astray, ended up in jail, but we crossed paths and we became really good friends in jail. And he was like, Port Huron's the place to be if you want some recovery. So that was the first time I decided to do something that I hadn't done before, which is get away from town, change my environment, people, places, things. So I did the 6 months at Share Macomb. And then when I got out, I came out to Port Huron. And that's kind of like when my recovery journey started. So when and how recovery happened to me was a combination of community and support and God. Because when I came out here in 2020, my reasons weren't necessarily genuine. I was on probation. I didn't want to be on Macomb County probation. I had heard that St. Clair County probation was easier, but we also had COVID going on, so it was kind of easy to slip through the cracks. Where I messed up though is I started attending meetings when I came out here. I got involved in the community. I got a sponsor. I started working the steps. And I didn't really think of how much of an impact that would have on me until I went back out. So they let me off probation in 2021. I had my own place. I had a bunch of money. I had a great job. I can do this successfully. And I didn't. I tried. I gave it my best attempt, But ultimately, I ended up in the same place I've been 1,000 times, spiritually broken. It's crazy. Like when I think back on my last relapse, because of the knowledge I got in recovery up to that point, whether I was sincere about being in recovery or not, it stuck. This time I would get high and I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I couldn't talk to my mom on the phone. So basically, I'm living in a home by myself, completely isolated from everyone, sick, and just full of shame and guilt. My biggest triumph in recovery has been the experience I get helping another addict or alcoholic. It's such a beautiful thing to see. So I'm at a point in my life where I'm realizing like the things that I didn't care about then mean the most to me now. The things I didn't believe in then, I believe in the most now. My life has changed in like such dramatic and drastic ways that it blows my mind every day. I'm grateful every day. I thank God every day for the things I have now. I used to never believe in God. He's who I speak to first now. I never wanted to get married. I'm married to the love of my life now. I never wanted to have kids. I have my first child on the way. And these are all things that fill me with love and joy and happiness every single day of my life. You know what I mean? So like to have that experience myself and then be able to share that with another addict or alcoholic, watch them have success in this program, there's really no words to describe that.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Recovery Happens. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please give us a call at 888-68-BW-ROCK.